based on the CBSE guidelines and syllabus. Today, I am going to discuss the poem on Killing a Tree by Giv Patel. This is part 1 of the poem in which I'll be discussing the whole poem line by line detailed explanation along with important questions. In part 2, I'll be discussing literary devices and I'll also be discussing certain other important questions. So let's get started. First, about the poet. Giv Patel was born on 18th August 1940. He is an Indian poet and playwright. His first play was called Princess and it was performed in 1971. He was born in Mumbai and educated at Grant Medical School. He briefly worked as a medical examiner in rural Gujarat before moving back to Mumbai. He currently resides in Mumbai and practices medicine. He is also a painter. So, Giv Patel, the poet, he is a multidimensional personality. He is a doctor by profession. He is a poet, a playwright, as well as a painter. Now, about the poem. The poem on the surface, that is, if you take a superfluous take of the poem, it seems to be a DIY explanation. But it is much more than that. Now, how a DIY? Let's take a look. Like, suppose if you are reading an article on baking a cake. So, what do you expect in that article? The article, it would be about the procedure of baking it. So, similarly, on killing a tree, it actually gives us the recipe of killing a tree, but obviously sarcastically. The poet is quite disappointed and displeased at the selfishness of man, who, even after knowing the consequences of deforestation, doesn't stop. He thus applies reverse psychology to entrap the readers and shake them up to the reality of pain inflicted by them on trees. So, what the poet does? The poet, he is disappointed, he is displeased because man knows that what he is doing by cutting the trees, he is going to harm himself in the long run. But he fails to understand this, or even knowing it, he is still continuing to do it. So the poet thinks that if I apply reverse psychology, maybe man would learn something from his follies. So therefore, rather than saying in the poem that don't cut trees, he is telling man that how to do it. So the poet brings out the dangers of deforestation and discloses the cruelty of man in doing so. The poet nowhere in the poem directly advises the readers to stop deforestation. So before moving ahead, do remember to subscribe to my channel. Now the theme. So deforestation, obviously, that is one of the major themes. It has become a critical problem, but still man continues to clear forests, to make roads, buildings, and use it for other purposes like fuel, etc. So the poet is aware of this imminent danger, which is quite visible in the poem, and he is saddened at the incorrigible attitude of man. So the poet, he is sad at the incorrigible means that a man is not going to change the attitude. He is staying the same. He's not changing. So the poem also talks about the pain inflicted upon trees. He tries to sensitize man towards his cruelty and harsh treatment to trees. But the way he is sensitizing, that is different. He is not directly telling that don't do it. Now, stanza 1. So, we will be doing the explanation of stanza 1, and for this, I'll be opening the stanza. So, here, let's take out the first stanza and then we'll be beginning. So, this is the first stanza. Let's read it. So, here the poet says, it takes much time to kill a tree. Not a simple jab of knife will do it. It has grown, slowly consuming the earth, rising out of it, feeding upon its crust, absorbing years of sunlight, air, water, and out of its leprous hide, sprouting leaves. So, here in stanza 1, in the first line, if you see, the poet tells us that killing a tree is not easy. It takes a lot of time and effort to kill a tree. A simple jab of knife will not kill it. So jab meaning is a sudden rough blow. So poet says that a sudden rough blow with a knife is not going to do the job. Now, why it's not going to do a job? Because a full grown tree is quite sturdy. It's strong and it's sturdy. And it has become strong and sturdy because it has gained strength by consuming nutrients from the soil, absorbing sunlight, water, and air for years to reach its full grown size. Obviously, it's not that if you plant a sapling, the next day it has grown into a full grown tree. So it has taken years to reach that size, and that is why it's strong and sturdy. And just with a simple knife, with one blow, you cannot kill a tree. So consuming here means taking nourishment from the tree, and feeding also it means the same, taking nourishment and feeding upon the nutrients that are in the soil. Now, here again, the poet then says that due to years of bathing in the sun, its bark, that is the hide, it has become scaly, rough, and irregular, that is leprous. And new leaves they keep on sprouting out of it. So, this is important. Years of sunlight, air, water, and out of its leprous hide sprouting leaves. Now, what is leprous hide? Hide is skin, and here it refers to the bark of a tree. Leprous is taken from leprosy. So, leprosy it is a skin disease, and it makes the skin of man unhealthy, scaly, dry, and uneven. So, similar is the look of the bark. Now, here in the picture, if you can see this bark of the tree, how scaly and rough, uneven, and disfigured it is. So, that is why the poet has called this as leprous, because the man's skin in case of leprosy also becomes like this. So, that is why leprous hide. So, the poet is pointing to the bark of the tree, which is dry, scaly, hard, and uneven. So obviously this is a literary device also, which I'll be discussing in part 2. So sprouting leaves. So from this leprous hide, leaves they are sprouting out. He says that due to years of bathing in sun, its bark, that is hide, it has become scaly, rough and irregular, and new leaves they keep on sprouting out of it. So obviously this outer portion it is exposed to sun. So because of that it has become like this. Now next we move to the important questions from this stanza. Now, why does it take much time to kill a tree? Why can't a simple jab of knife do the job? So, tree it has become strong and sturdy by consuming years of sunlight, air, and water. So, it cannot be killed by mere blows of knife. It requires much time and effort to bring down a tree. So, you have to write all these points that it has become strong and sturdy, why it has become strong and sturdy, and therefore it requires much time and effort to kill a tree. Now, how has the tree grown? Again, it's going to be almost the same answer, but the words they are going to be different. So, a tree, it has grown slowly by consuming the earth. It rises by absorbing years of sunlight, air, water. It takes its nutrients from the soil and grows into a full grown tree. So, you see that how the answer it changes according to the question, whereas almost same points are written. So, you have to take care of these things. Now this is thinking beyond the text question. So based on this first stanza, this question it is a little different, important question. What is the significance of its leprous hide, sprouting leaves? So bring out the irony in this line. So this leprous hide, sprouting leaves. What is the irony and what is the significance of these lines? So leprous hide refers to uneven, dark, brown, dry, and rough bark of the tree. So first we have to write down the meaning that leprous hide, what it means. The skin of the patient suffering from leprosy, it becomes unhealthy, disfigured, and it decays. So this is leprous hide. But here, now why the poet has used leprous hide here? What does the poet want to show? So that is the significance. But here the poet conveys the idea of growth and life when he says leprous hide sprouting leaves. So when he's connecting this leprous hide to sprouting leaves, so here the idea of growth is there. So let's read it again. But here the poet conveys the idea of growth and life when he says leprous hide sprouting leaves. Thus it is ironic that new leaves they grow out of leprous bark. It signifies life rather than death and decay. So, what is ironic here is something that is already suffering, something that is already unhealthy. From there, new leaves, new branches, they are sprouting out. So, that is ironic. So, it signifies life rather than death and decay. So, this you need to remember. Now we come to the next stanza. So next stanza it says, so hack and chop, but this alone won't do it. Not so much pain will do it. The bleeding bark will heal, and from close to the ground will rise curled green twigs, miniature boughs, which, if unchecked, will expand again to former size. So, what is the poet saying? Now, hack, it means to cut with rough or heavy blows, and chop means to cut into small pieces with repeated sharp blows. So, poet says that only hacking and chopping is not going to do the job. Not so much pain will do it. So, by doing so, by hacking and chopping, you will be inflicting pain on the tree, but still you won't be killing it. So, poet says that only hacking and chopping of a bough will not kill a tree. These actions may cause pain to the tree but will not bring its end. A wound caused in such a way will lead to bleeding bark, that is, sap that will ooze out of the bark when it is hit. But this injury in the tree, it will heal itself with time, and then new curled green twigs and boughs will grow. So, if man doesn't interfere again, the tree will once again regain its former size. So the poet says that trees, they are strong, they're resilient, they regrow even after suffering from a pain or suffering from an injury, they regrow itself. The tree can heal its injury. So here the poet says, again I'm reading it, that a wound caused in such a way will lead to bleeding bark. So in this picture you can see, so here the tree, it has been cut from here and sap is oozing out. So the poet actually, he has compared this sap to the blood. When there's an injury in man, so blood, it oozes out. So here this is personification also, and the poet is trying to say or trying to give human qualities to tree, and therefore the poet says that even trees, they can feel the pain and it will heal itself with time. So poet says that after some time the tree is going to heal its injury. Now in this picture you can see this injury, it has healed itself. So therefore the poet says that new curled green twigs and boughs, they will grow. And if man doesn't interfere again, once again the tree will become a full grown tree. Now, here, if you see these words like consuming, feeding, absorbing, so all these words, these are giving human qualities to the tree. So, the tree is personified. Now, the questions. What happens if a tree is hacked and chopped? Does it die? So, hacking and chopping of tree inflicts injury on it. It leads to bleeding, that is, sap comes out, but the tree is not killed. With time, it will heal itself, it heals itself, and soon new boughs and twigs sprout out, and the tree grows into its former size. So, this is not going to kill a tree. Then, how will bleeding bark heal? The bleeding bark, that is the result of human cruelty on trees, will repair and restore itself with time. Continuous hacking of the tree is not going to kill it. The tree will soon heal, and curled green twigs and miniature boughs, they will grow from its bark. So, like this, the tree is going to heal itself. This is again important, the meaning of this phrase, if unchecked. Now, the poet wants to say that if the growth of the tree is not inhibited by mindless human cutting and deforestation, then the tree will grow and expand to its former size. So he says that once the tree is chopped, its branches is cut, and man leaves the tree that way, the tree will heal itself and new branches, they'll come out of it only if man doesn't return again and cut the tree again. So if unchecked, it will expand again to its former size. Let's move on now. Stanza 3. So let's take out stanza 3. Here, the stanza 3 is beginning from no, and this is very significant. So poet says, no, the root is to be pulled out of the anchoring earth. It is to be roped, tied, and pulled out, snapped out, or pulled out entirely out from the earth cave, and the strength of the tree exposed, the source white and wet, the most sensitive hidden for years inside the earth. So here the poet is saying, no, the first word, no, what are you doing? That is not going to kill a tree. So he is telling man that no, no, don't do this way. This way, you're not going to kill tree. So again, he is using sarcasm here. So rather than telling man that you are doing wrong, don't do it. He is telling man that don't do it this way. This way, you're not going to kill a tree. So for that it means that for killing a tree, the tree is to be pulled out from the earth that is holding it firmly. So it is anchoring earth. The earth, it is giving a grip to the tree. So a rope is tied around it and it is pulled out entirely from the earth cave. So the poet is telling how to do it. Tie a rope around it and then pull it out it entirely from the earth cave. So what is earth cave? Earth cave is a deep pit in the earth where the roots they are holding the tree. Then he says that by doing so, the strength of the tree is exposed. So once you pull out the tree, the strength of the tree that is exposed. So according to the poet, the strength of the tree lies in the roots that are the most sensitive part. So the most sensitive part of the tree, that is the roots that are white because of lack of sunlight and wet, they are hidden inside the earth for years, nourishing and supporting the tree. And now they are bare. So once you pull out the roots, they now lie in open. They are bare now. So this is in the third stanza, the poet actually gives the whole recipe, the whole procedure, how to do it. But he is doing this sarcastically. Now the questions. He says, what is the significance of no in the beginning of the stanza? So important question as I said. So the word no in the beginning of the third stanza is quite significant. The poet applies reverse psychology to tackle the headstrong man. He tells that the root of the tree is to be pulled out of the anchoring earth to kill it. So again by saying no in the third stanza, the poet is applying reverse psychology to tackle headstrong man. Headstrong man means obstinate man who is not trying to change. So, or who is not trying to admit that he is doing wrong. So he tells man that the root of the tree is to be pulled out if you want to kill a tree. So pull it out of the anchoring earth. Next is what happens when the strength of a tree is exposed. So strength of the tree, it lies in the root. So when roots are exposed, what happens? So a tree, it is pulled out, its most sensitive part, roots, most sensitive part is exposed, the part that is the source of nutrients, water, minerals, etc. For the tree, it stays deep inside the earth for years, nourishing the tree, but because of man, it is left out to scorch and choke when pulled out. So once the tree is pulled out, the roots, as I said, they are bare, they lie in open, and under the sun they will burn, they will scorch and choke themselves, and finally the tree will die. So what happens to the strength of the tree when it is exposed? It will burn, it will scorch, it will choke, and it will lie out under the sun and slowly it will die. Next comes stanza 4. So let's see what happens in stanza 4. Now when the poet has already told that this is what you have to do to kill a tree, then he says, after this, it is a matter of time. So let's read it. Then the matter of scorching and choking in sun and air, browning, hardening, twisting, withering, and then it is done. So he says that after that, once you've pulled it, it is a matter of time. Exposed to the burning sun and air, the tree will scorch and choke. It will become brown, hard, and lifeless. It will begin to wither and twist, and finally the tree will be killed. So, once again, the poet says that once you have pulled it out, then he says that now it's just a matter of time, maybe a few days. It will burn itself under the sun and air, and then it will scorch and choke. It will become brown, hard, lifeless. Its parts, its branches, its leaves, they'll wither and twist, and finally it will be killed. So the questions: what finally kills a tree? The scorching and choking of the tree in the sun and air after it is pulled and snapped out result in its hardening, browning, twisting, and withering. So this finally kills a tree. So this is a short answer, but if you want to write a little detail, so how can a tree be killed? A tree can be killed by pulling its roots out of the anchoring earth. To pull it completely, it is roped, tied, and then pulled out of the earth cave. Once it is out, it is exposed to harsh weather conditions. Because of sun, air, it scorches and hardens. Within a matter of days, then it twists and withers, thus killing the tree. So, this is a little detail of the same answer. Now, some useful expressions. So, these expressions we have read in the poem, and now let's explain it. So, slowly consuming the earth, that is in the first stanza. Let's see it here. So, it has grown slowly consuming the earth. So, what does it mean? It means taking and absorbing the nutrients from the soil. By doing so, a sapling turns into a full grown tree. Then leprosite. I have already explained, but let's read it again. So it's bark of a tree. This referred to as leprous because it is irregular and disfigured. It's not smooth, like the skin of a person suffering from leprosy. So hide is the skin, and here it stands for bark of the tree. Then comes bleeding bark in the second stanza. So when man hacks and chops a tree, tree sap oozes out of the cut like blood oozes out from an injury in case of man. So the poet here refers to bleeding bark and thus it personifies trees. So I've already told you that these words in the poem, consuming, feeding, absorbing, so there are many other words, so they all are personifying trees. Then anchoring earth and earth cave. This is important. Now anchoring earth is the roots of tree, they spread deep inside the earth cave. So you know that roots, they grow deep under the earth's crust. So roots, they spread there and they hold on to the earth, that is the soil, firmly and securely. And the rest of the tree, the upright tree, it is growing above that. So roots are actually holding the whole tree. So who roots, they are firmly and securely, they anchor and they support the tree above. So the earth holds trees securely and firmly by its roots. The tree is bound to the soil. Therefore, it is anchoring earth. The earth, it is supporting the tree. The roots actually inside the under the earth's crust, they are helping the tree to stand straight because they are firmly, they are holding the soil. So earth cave, a deep pit in the earth is a dark, it is which is dark like a cave where roots attach themselves and hold firmly a tree that grows out of the earth's crust. So what is an earth cave? Earth cave is when you have to plant a sapling. So you dig a pit. So a small pit that you dig, it is dark inside like a cave. So when you will plant a sapling there, so roots obviously they'll attach themselves under it and they will hold firmly a tree that will later grow above the earth's crust. So that is earth cave. Now these are the general topics that I have already covered. These are the topics from grammar and writing. I've covered reported speech, imperatives and interrogatives, dialogue completions, and character sketch, tips and tricks, descriptive paragraph on my neighbor and postman, and descriptive paragraph on a sports person. So if you want to refer to them, I'll be giving all the links in the description box. You can go and check. And in literature, I have already covered the poem Wind, then poem Road Not Taken. I've covered how to write a character sketch, giving an example of character sketch of Happy Prince. And rest of the chapters on weekly basis I'll be covering so that before final exams, each and every chapter in poem it is covered. So subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss anything. And all links, obviously, they're given in the description box. That's all for today. I hope that you've liked it and you've understood the poem. And in the second part, I'll be discussing literary devices and few other important questions. So kindly subscribe to my channel. If there is any query, do write in the comments box and I'll try to solve it. Thank you so much.